Hey there everyone, and welcome back to the React.js. Now, carrying forward from the last video, I hope you have enjoyed that and you have now understood what are the properties and what are the props. And I would be calling them from now onwards as props because that's the React language we want to follow. Okay, now the next thing that we want to do is I want to just disable this default.props for a minute. So I'll just select this and I'll press Control, or let's just leave it there. What I want to show you is what are the types of properties that we do have in here. So let's just do that. And in order to do so, let's say we are gonna work on, let's just say on this parent. So we are gonna do everything for the parents. Okay, that sounds good. And we're gonna define some default props for the parents in here. Okay, so how we can do that? Now, first of all, we're going to define what are the types of props that are required for us, and then we're going to define some of the default props for us. Okay, and we're going to display all of this into this parent. Okay, sounds like a plan. Or can we do that inside this component? It's exactly the same. Let's just leave this in here, parent, because we want to work on this in the state movie as well. Let's just work on it here on this guy, this app. So all you have to do is call this app, and just like we have the default props, we have a property name as prop types there. Okay, and this is, again, it can take an object. Okay, that is good, and you can define as many objects as you wish. Now let me show you what are the types of object. Just like the types of variables are available, what are the types of props which are available. Now let's start with the prop, and I'll just simply say prop. And obviously the most usable is the object, and how you call that is you simply call react dot, and then with the capital P you have to call this prop types. There we go, and oops, it just automatically did the things for me. So prop types, and you have to say dot object. So now you're saying that this object is being defined in the props, prop object. There is another object being created inside the props that will be named as prop object, and that is having a type of object. So you're explicitly defining the things for it. Okay, that's good. Now let's just call this as prop string. And again, just like what we did, we have to just copy this so that we can work a little bit faster. And you have to say react.proptypes.string. So there we go, we have got string. Okay, now what else we have? We have got prop functions as well, or let me just call this as simply prop numbers. Prop numbers, and this is the tricky one because the rest of the things are, let me just copy and paste this first because it's sometimes hard to just type and talk at the same time. And number there. So there are others as well. We'll just work on with the threes, but there are others like array, which you can say dot array. You have got bool as well. You can call this as dot bool to define them. There is a function as well. You can call dot func for func. Don't write the full function. It's just func. And also in some cases, you can pass on the things like dot is required to make sure that whenever the props are being passed on, or in the default props, yeah, this property should be there. This cannot be blank, but right now we are not going to just worry about them. So we have seen that it has got object, string, and numbers. But again, as I told you, it has got function, booleans, and array as well. We are not going to write that right now in here because we have a lot of example to work on with. And then in here, you can call the default props there as well. Just like you have called it for the parent, you can call it for any component. So in this case, I'll simply say app.default props. Okay, and since you have already defined what are the properties going to come up, like prop number, prop string, and prop object, all you have to do is just assign the relative value in that. Now don't try to play smart that, for example, you have created it as number type and maybe you are storing things like a string in that. That's not going to work. So for example, prop number would be 3 in this case, and let me put a comma there, and let's try prop string, and prop string is going to be this is prop string, maybe anything. And finally, we'll have an object because we'll be using object quite a lot. So there we go, prop object. And obviously it's going to further take a lot of objects, so I'll call this as obj1 for object1, and I'm going to simply store the strings in it. So I'll simply say I am object1, and now with the comma I'll press Control, I'll press Command Shift and D, and one more time let's just call this as, and I'll press my Control, so I'll say 2 there, and again and again, and I'll call this as 3. So quickly let's remove this comma. Okay, so we have done quickly, we have defined some of the default props in there. Now the next job is just about this parent. We want to call them as well. Now calling is pretty simple, and I hope everybody will be able to do it. I'll just call some of the h3 tags in here, h3, and just inside the h3 all you have to say is use a pair of parentheses, and I'll write some things in here, like for example, let's start with a number. So I'll say prop number is, and then in the pair of curly braces you have to simply say this dot, you know it, dot props dot whatever the name you have got. So in this case it has got prop numbers, there we go, prop number, just number, and save this, and we are expecting to see a number 3 there. So no big deal, you have already gone through it. So these are some of the default properties being available. Now quickly Command Shift D, Command Shift D. So just like we have prop number, we have string. So I'll copy and paste this and paste that. And in case you want to access the object, that is also pretty simple. You have to just copy this guy, place in there, and then again further onto the dot notation you have to call whatever you want to call. Like in our case it's obj1. I'll call obj1, save that, and without any big deal we have got all the default props. So now what you have learned in this movie, let's quickly remember that you have learned there are prop types in which you can define what are the properties that you can say that, hey, no matter what, I'm gonna call these properties as this in here, and then you can set some default values or can work on with some APIs and other levels. But on the whole, you have now mastered the properties and you have worked quite a lot. Now we'll be using this file for quite a lot, and from the next movie we are gonna get started with the state. So I think you are pretty much comfortable with the props, and now let's go ahead and move on and talk about what actually is this state.